So one of the things that I work really hard on in my life is maintaining an intentional positive attitude. I work at it. People ask me about it all the time. It's something that I spend a great deal of time on it. But just like everybody else, every once in a while, my mood starts to go sideways, and that's when that inner voice, that voice that kind of tells you you're not good enough, smart enough, doggone it, people don't like you, that voice, that's when that voice starts to creep in. And so when I see that happening, when I feel that happening, I sort of have a bank of things that inspire me, things that lift me up, that I can quickly get myself back on track. And so I wanted to share just a few of those things that I go to that are sources of inspiration. So these are 5 sources of inspiration I use to kind of lift me up and get me back on track. Number 1, Ed Milet. Now, Ed is someone I found fairly recently. He's got a podcast. He is very aggressive on Instagram. He has a YouTube channel, and I find he interviews really, really interesting people, and he's very good at lifting them up. And then he's got some really great insights as well. And so if you haven't already, subscribe to his YouTube channel, subscribe to his podcast. I highly recommend it. That's Ed Milet. He's awesome. Number 2, and he's one I talk about a lot, but again, it always comes back, I always come back to him, is Gary Vaynerchuk, Gary V as it were. Gary V puts out a ton of content, and he is sort of, I feel like he goes where I want to go. Now, one of the things that about Gary is he's created literally a content machine. He's got people who travel with him, and they create podcasts and videos, and that's awesome. There's no way I could possibly consume all of the content that Gary puts out, but what I find is sometimes I can just cherry pick things that look interesting to me. I headline read his stuff and I'm like, okay, I want to dig into that, and then I'll listen to 5 minutes of that and it gets me back on track. So that's Gary Vaynerchuk. Another one that I really like is Seth Godin. Seth is one of those people who's a hero to me. He writes a blog every day, and when, again, in the morning, I'm looking for some inspiration, Seth's blog is amazing. It's short, it's sweet, it's digestible, and he's just such an individual and an independent thinker. I love that, and it inspires me. He also has a new podcast called Akimbo, and he takes on topics and goes into deep, kind of deep dives into different things, and I just love how he thinks about things. He makes me think more deeply, and I love that. Next up, Mel Robbins. Mel Robbins is the author of The 5-Second Rule. It's one of the more impactful books that I've listened to over the last couple of years. And personally, I mean, I'm sure reading it's great, but I love Mel and her delivery. She has a very no bullshit approach to life, and I love that. So she's got a YouTube channel. She's got podcasts as well. Her book, 5-Second Rule, I recommend it to anyone. And so I would check out Mel Robbins. And my 5th one, it's not a person per se, but you know, sometimes music lifts us up. And one of the kind of soundtracks, or a movie that I saw recently with my family, it's called The Greatest Showman. If you haven't already checked it out, I totally recommend it. It is, you talk about an entrepreneur, that is the story of not only an entrepreneur and creating something where something didn't exist, but also appreciating and valuing people who are different. There's so many lessons in it. And then so it's not that I go back and watch the movie, I go back and listen to the soundtrack. The soundtrack is full of really cool songs, great musicality, but I love the lyrics. They inspire me. So if I'm like doing some manual labor, one of the places I go to is The Greatest Showman soundtrack. So those are 5 places I go for inspiration when I need lifted back up. What I would love from you is to find out what you do. So if you would, in the comments below, let me know where you go. Who is it that inspires you? Who gets you fired up? And let me know so I can check those out. If you haven't already done so, man, it would mean the world to me if you would comment, like, subscribe, and specifically subscribe. I'm trying to be consistent with my content and provide you value. So do me a favor and subscribe on up here to the YouTube channel. And again, let me know who inspires you. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time.